Welcome to the Advanced TESOL Skills courses. This is the masterclass in lesson planning for high impact teaching. It's a course designed for experienced teachers who wish to deepen their knowledge and improve their teaching skills. The course objectives are: the bottom line is we want you to get improved learner feedback, so happier students. That leads in turn to higher learner retention. It's very important. If you're working on your own, generating your own students, you will know that retention is about your bottom line. This is what pays the bills. If you're in a language school, student retention is often the benchmark by which teachers are measured. It's vital. So you want to keep your students and you want to keep happy students. Right. Ideally, although not guaranteed for sure, it will lead to higher rates of pay, better skill, happier students. It's the basis of better pay. A good teacher has more job opportunities. If you combine your experience with educational programs and improve feedback from learners, you're going to have more opportunities. It's an ideal practical preparation for advanced teaching exams like the Cambridge Delta. The course is embedded in practical teaching. However, the theory underpinning it is sound. Maybe this should be the top priority. You will end up with more free time and more fun. The idea is that once you become more efficient at planning, you get used to doing it, life becomes easier, far less stressful, classes are easier, and you're more relaxed. We work way too hard as language teachers. We need to figure out ways to become efficient and smart. Okay, so the module contents. As I said, we take a very practical approach. Handouts, all the information is embedded in practice. You will find participant tasks as you go along. Stop the video, do the task. This will give you a wider knowledge, but it will also give you materials that you can use for yourself moving forward. Where there's not worksheets, there's also information handouts. Each module ends with teacher training tips. So as experienced teacher trainers, we give you the inside on what teachers are likely to have problems with, how to overcome this, and what materials are useful. Okay. You'll be seeing a lot of me. My name's Jeanette Barsdale. I've been teaching for an appallingly long time. I've been training for about 30 years. I'm really lucky. I've worked all over the world. I've owned language schools. I've owned teacher training centres. I've opened them. I've written books, written courses, and I do it because I love it. But my fundamental belief is always the same. Make the life of a hard-working teacher easier. So I hope you enjoy the course. I hope you find it useful and that you can make immediate application with the contents. Thank you. Okay, in this segment, I will look at a lesson planning document. So what's required in a very extensive lesson plan and how can you complete it? So I'll show you a completed model as well. That you can download these, and there's also an explanation sheet if you want to refer back to it later. But let's start by asking, for you, what do you consider for a teacher to be the top benefits of writing a plan? Hit the pause button and have a think. Okay. So the benefits of a lesson plan. It gives you time out and space to think about your lesson. It sounds strange, but most of us are planning in a hurry. We have what called the doorknob lessons. You think on the doorknob, what am I going to do today? But sometimes to see it laid out is really useful. I have to say, a lot of teachers resist writing plans, which I completely understand, because they are very consuming and they challenge you. They challenge what might be your normal sort of classroom behaviour. You have to justify what you're doing. But they do give you time and space to actually think logically about the lesson. You're forced to clarify your objectives. Things need to be clear. Your organisation improves with planning. So yes, it helps you to sequence the lesson and just get organised. Although the planning is quite often, I don't want to do it. However, a successful plan boosts teachers' confidence. So they work really well. And a good plan, if you can pass it on and help other people, which is always really useful. Okay. Download the blank lesson planning document and consider how you might complete section 3, only section 3 of the lesson plan, and that's the language analysis for the language structure used to. Okay, so when I was younger, I used to smoke. Okay, so consider you are going to be teaching used to. How will you complete that? Okay, this is my sample model lesson plan. Obviously my name, title of the course, this depends. A lot of this documentation, remember, is for other people to be able to pick it up and work out, where you are physically, where you are in the course book, etc. So the idea, always think of your lesson plan as a document that somebody else has to read and work out the information. If you write it like that, it works well. So number of students, average number, class composition, could be all sorts, boys, girls, different ages, different levels, whatever you think is most important. Start time, room number, how long is the lesson? So an observer, it really, really varies. I've known observers observe a lesson for up to 3 hours, which seems awfully long. I would say that most observers, if it's not just a drop-in, might be 20 minutes, but a full formal observation would normally be about 50 minutes maximum. Okay, and the assessor wants to know how often the group meets and how long are they likely to keep going. Is this a 9-month course or is it an intensive short course? Okay, all right, so we're talking about used to, so the target language will be used to. So what the assessor's looking for is what was taught before. So is there something there? Okay, so we practice the use of past simple. So that's quite a likely previous lesson to introducing used to. If you're going to introduce used to, usually the students are fairly familiar with past simple forms, both regular and to some degree irregular. Okay, and moving on from used to, logically would be to incorporate all, past tense and regular and irregular and used to together to talk about. So to practice the 3 together. All right. So main aim of the lesson, and this obviously can vary. This is just kind of my idea for one. So to focus on used to in order to be able to describe one's childhood, comparing it to the lives of children today. So we've got the language and we've got the outcome. What are we going to do with it? So we've got the language is used to, and we're going to use that language in order to compare it to the lives of children today. So the secondary aim for this could well be to give reading practice on the topic of childhood and oral fluency. So I would expect to find the language I'm used to embedded into the reading. So this lesson is very likely to start with a reading practice. We'll understand the reading, we'll understand that it's about childhood and the past, and that reading will provide a model for the outcome, that the task that students will do at the end. Okay. Materials to be used, obviously this is very dependent on the teacher. In this case, I've used ChatGPT to create a 400-word reading, B1 level. We do look at using ChatGPT later on in the course, but it's very good for producing this kind of text. Okay. So if you're doing a Delta, you'll be asked to, management issues. So what are your personal development goals? So for example, let me show you. So you may wish to reduce unnecessary teacher talk, which for new teachers is a real problem and is a very, very valid personal goal. So try to elicit more and wait longer. There's a great temptation to jump in and answer A, student questions, and B, your own questions to students. And teacher talk, rehearsing classroom instructions and improving them absolutely reduces teacher talk. Okay, so personal development goals, all sorts. I've given in the information sheet, I've given lots of examples of different goals. The assessor needs to know, are there issues? So it could be 2 learners arrive 5 minutes late because of buses. It could be that student X tends to be disruptive during reading. So for example, this is your chance to show anyone watching the lesson that you are aware of any of the issues that may come up. Okay, so you might do some kind of activity before the late students arrive. It happens. So this may be, so for example, you may decide to offer more individual attention during the reading stage. So you're trying to show that you understand what the problems are, you're anticipating them, and you've got a solution. This is a chance where you can ask so let's show this one. Get the assessor's advice. I think the learner Alex may be in the wrong level, might benefit from going up to the next level, but I'm not sure how different it will be and if they can manage it or not. Can you advise? So the assessor may be more aware of the different levels in the school and can bring their expertise. Use your assessors. They are there because they are more experienced. Okay. In this case, I don't have a whiteboard plan, but if, for example, you're doing an advanced diploma exam, you will be expected to have a clear whiteboard plan for each stage of the lesson. So you need to draft out what your board will look like at each different stage. Okay, so this is going to be our target language. Let's see if I can... Okay. Oh, I haven't put it in there. Hang on, I'll come back to that then. Okay, how will the meaning of the target language be presented? So this is essentially context as well. So I will show pictures of myself at school. They will be black and white, of course, and ask how they think my life might be different now. I'll guide this by getting the students to think about my past habits, bedtimes, how I used to spend money, how I spent money in the past, my interests and my feelings when I was a younger person at school. So, at school, I used to love doing physics, which is very true. I loved it. Okay, let's go on to our meaning of the... So this is the target language and the meaning. Okay, I've got to change that. I used to love playtime. All right. It's a past state, so it means it's a state that finished in the past. I used to ride my bike. It's a past habit as opposed to state, and it doesn't happen now. But also, if it was habit, it infers automatically that it happened more than once. And used to express a past habit or repeated action that no longer happens. There's a bit of repetition there, but that gives you the idea. So essentially, that is the core meaning of used to. Okay, so students may confuse used to with regular present tense verbs and think it means something that still happens. I used to play football, and they think I still play football. So a potential area of confusion. Some of the more slightly higher level students may be mixing it up with be used to. I am used to living in my hometown now. So they might, which is obviously different structure and different meaning, and they do tend to confuse these two, but it's more likely the other way around. However, there's that possible confusion. L1 interference. So in some languages, the exact structure may not exist, so students struggle to grasp the nuance of past habit or state that no longer happens or exists. So that's the anticipated problems, and my solutions are, I can use a timeline, so put everything in the past, contrastative examples, concept checking questions. Do I still do it now? Was it in the past or present? Was it a regular habit? Did I do it more than once? Etc. You may use translation, but cautiously and only if it's helpful. Okay, so target language for meaning, anticipated problems, and the solution. Okay, now I look at the grammar. So I'm going to analyse the language from 3 points. Its meaning or use, form / grammar, and pronunciation. So if I'm looking at the grammar problems, it's not really a problem, but I outline the target language always as affirmative, negative, and question structures. Okay, let's have a look what I've got here. Okay, errors in question, negative forms, and there's another, so this is where students I anticipate may make errors, and the problem of overgeneralization. The learner may apply the rule too broadly. Okay, is there any more there? I don't know. Okay, so my solutions are emphasize, provide written and spoken errors and highlight the D in used, have students circle or underline the full structure in the text. Explicitly teach did takes the past tense, so we use used and not used after it. I mean, practice for used to, really. Pronunciation issues, okay. So affirmative, negative, and question with the phonemic script showing. The potential problems are connected speech issues, used to, didn't with the schwa, didn't used to with the speech, with the schwa sound at the end. So drill for natural pronunciation. Have I got that there? Yeah. Teach natural pronunciation. I used to live in. Model sentences and use call repetition with clear stress. I used to ride my bike to school. I used to ride. Use drilling with gestures to show where the stress falls. Okay, what's it? Out of interest, on early initial training courses, we have a rule that we do not change a plan on the same day as the teacher's teaching. They just can't cope with it. And it's quite, you see a plan, you think, oh my goodness, this is not going to go well. However, the disturbance to the teacher is so great that over time I've come to think that just let the teacher get on with it, and maybe I can help them during the actual lesson if it's needed. But so don't change on the day. Offer support, be there. Tell them, it's not a torture. Give them ideas of ways to improve it. Throughout this, you'll see the tests that you can apply. Apply the tests of looking at the interaction patterns, Bloom's taxonomy. Are the aims correct? You'll see all the tests that you can apply to make sure that the plan is going to work. Okay, so in conclusion, one of the hardest things, weirdly, is to get teachers to complete the plan. I've actually got to the point now where I won't observe a lesson without having received the plan. It's not worth it. You need the plan to accurately and effectively and fairly assess a lesson. Start at the back. If you're not sure, I always encourage teachers to think, what do you want students to do at the end of the lesson? So, for example, they're going to use used to in order to compare their childhoods. Fine. Okay, now work back. So you've got your kind of main production task. Think about how you'll get the language in. So quite often, starting at the back of the lesson works. And like I've just said, and run the tests. Look at the aims, look at the interaction patterns, look at the levels of engagement. Okay, all right, thank you. So we're starting with taking aim, how to hit the mark. I'm starting this with aims because without a good aim, everything really has far less chance of succeeding. Good aims make for good lessons. And an experienced teacher will usually start in their mind with the aim of the lesson and then work backwards. So they're absolutely key. Why are they important? They allow for the balance in the lesson. Imagine that the aim is your destination. It's the purpose of the lesson. It's where you're going. The staging is the road, the route to, and the aim is the destination. Once you've got a clear destination, everything falls into place. Everything's balanced. It's a bit like if you know your destination is just a place for a rucksack, that's all you pack. You don't need to pack a suitcase. So that destination allows you to create activities that meet the main aim. It's efficient. A good aim gives you efficient use of time. You're not getting drawn off on erroneous, maybe fun, but erroneous activities. It's much easier to manage a well-aimed lesson. Students can anticipate the expectation of you. They know what's required. They know where things are going. They can follow the flow of the lesson. So they trust you more. They trust the teacher. They're not sitting there waiting, thinking, not sure if I've got this right. Don't know why we're doing this. This doesn't make sense. So the aim also does many other things. It means that you work with different types of students. You use materials effectively. And you get higher learner satisfaction with good aims. Okay. So hit the pause button and have a think. What do you consider makes a good main aim? Okay, a main aim. What are the components on a lesson plan of a good main aim? Okay, they're learner-centred. Often they'll start with the words SWBAT. SWBAT. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to. Okay, so look at the lesson, the main aim from the student's point of view. They are specific and measurable. So it's very detailed as to what the students will achieve by the end of the lesson. Remember, the end goal is the main aim. It's linked to language systems. It will include language and or skills, reading, writing, speaking, listening. They are incorporated into the main aim. Appropriate to learner level. Not always as easy with mixed level classes, but somewhere the pitch is about appropriate. Achievable in the time given. That sounds really obvious, but in fact, many of the plans that I receive, they would take about 3 months of intensive training on the topic to meet the goal. However, it needs to be recognised that especially for novice and new teachers, they find it really difficult to estimate how long activities will take. So have some scope there. And even very experienced teachers get caught sometimes. It's not always possible to predict how long things will take. Things happen in the classroom. we think that this will take 10 minutes and then suddenly, we've shot through in 5, or the students you've hit a stumbling block you hadn't anticipated and it takes 15 minutes. So achievable in the time given, but with caution. Okay, so this time, what do you think a stage aim should tell the reader? What should be in a stage aim? What's the stage aim about? So let me be clear. First of all, I think that every activity that you do with the students should have its own stage aim. And in fact, everything you do should have a stage aim. You should know and be able to state at any point in the lesson why you're doing what you're doing and what the purpose of it is. So, yes, so it must be very clear and specific. It should be linked to the main aim. And that sounds strange, but in fact, often teachers insert activities to their aim, maybe to change the pace or because the students like it and it's fun and it's always worked in the past. Check that the aims linguistically meet the main aim. If they don't, you may want to take the activity out. It's focused on the learners. Students will be able to. Students will. It reflects the type of stage. Is this a reading section? Is it, speaking? Is it measurable? So is it clear to you and the student when they have achieved it? Yeah. So, for example, the difference between talk about the weather or find 3 things about the weather that you agree with. So one is measurable and the other is not. Okay. So hit the pause button, download and complete the AIMS task worksheet to test your ability to identify good main and stage aims. This is an important practice, so we'll talk through it in the next slide. So I'm sure you're like all my students and you've been teacher's pet and you've completed your homework completely and my commentary is hardly needed. Yeah, right. Okay, so students will learn about the present perfect way too vague. I mean, there are so many elements to the present perfect. And are we talking about the grammar of the present perfect, the pronunciation, the meaning, and what will they do with it? What are they going, where are they going to see it? Is it coming in on a listening? Is the teacher going to stand at the board? So, no. Students will develop so I quite like this, but I see this more as a stage aim. I'm not sure that I would want to spend a main whole lesson doing just scanning skills. So good stage aim, but probably not appropriate for a main aim. Yeah. A note of warning about the word understand. It's really difficult to measure this. What's the test? How will you know that students have understood it? So again, way too vague. I want to know what they're going to do with the language. Teach vocabulary. As you can imagine, way too vague. What vocabulary? What are they going to do with it? Where's this vocabulary going to come from? So are you going to present it yourself or will it be embedded in a reading or listening text? So not good as a main aim at all. I like this, obviously. Clear grammar focus, we know what the language is, we know what they're going to do with it. So we know the context, we know the task. Brilliant. To improve students' English, I've actually had this and the trainee teacher defended it as an aim and I get it. Yes, arguably and hopefully we all try to do this in our lessons, but of course it's too vague. What language, what skill, what's it all for? Okay. Identify and use. Yeah, I think identify and use. Yeah, I think this works. This can be a main aim. It's probably a little bit more related to a stage aim, but I'll accept it. It's not as strong as it could be. I think it needs to be cleared in order when ordering in a restaurant, and I'd put on the end of that possibly role play. Okay. So doing a speaking activity, yes, you're absolutely right. Interestingly, this is a what, not a why. So a lot of teachers confuse what and why. Okay. Perfect. We like that one. Very clear. And we like this one as well. Oh, we didn't do it all. Clear. We've got the language and we've got the production task. We like that. So main aims, they definitely need to include language, context, what you're going to do with it. So what's the lesson for? Why? What's the destination of your lesson? Okay, stage aims. I'm sure you've got this cracked by now. To do an activity, that's a what, not a why. So think about to do an activity in order to what. If you can put in order to on the end of it, then you probably haven't got an aim worked out. Yeah, perfect. Nice. Practice. That's obvious. Practice what? If it's a controlled practice, is it controlled practice that tests meaning, form? Are we transforming the verbs, or is it perhaps pronunciation? Be very clear what you are practicing in your stage aim. There we are. Nice. That was what I was meaning. Okay. Students will listen. You hope. In my experience, it's not always that easy. But, what are they listening to and for? And why are they listening? What are they listening to do? Are they practicing recognition of vocabulary or testing their understanding of the global comprehension of the text? They will listen is not like they will come. No. Okay, build it and they will come. I like this. It's good. Oh, now this is a very interesting one. We see the word explain on many new teachers' lesson plans. Not good. So it suggests that the teacher's standing at the front, and so I would change the word explain to exemplify, demonstrate, test understanding of, but to explain does suggest the teacher's going to stand up there and go blah, 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 blah. End of story. Be very wary of the word explain or tell the rules. Doesn't work. Okay, good stage aim. We're checking meaning. We know why we're doing it. Lovely. To teach grammar, I've also had this. It goes without saying it's way too vague. What, the grammar of what? And what does to teach mean? Yeah. So if we're looking at student-centered practice, we want to sort of test, exemplify, but not, the word teach in itself is quite loaded. Okay, we like that one. So in both stage and main aims, we're looking for clarity. Is it clear that the person knows why they're doing what they're doing? So the stage aims are sort of the route and the main aim is the destination. A few years ago, a friend of mine designed what he called the AIM-LP lesson framework. And he was trying to apply a set of aims that can be applied to any stage of any lesson. And he called it AIM-LP, which means activate, input, reading or listening, meaning and language, plus production. So he argued, and I agree with him, that at any point in the lesson you're doing one of these things. And so he's provided aims for that thing. So A is activation. This can be the beginning of the lesson when we're setting the context, letting the students know what it's going to be about, raising their interest in the topic, finding out what they already know. Input text is reading or listening. So we are putting language into students. M is the meaning language. So language could be vocabulary, it can be grammar, it can be functions. Production is producing language, productive skills, speaking or writing. So you'll find, hit the pause button, you'll find a worksheet. See if you can write the aim for each stage of the AIM-LP lesson framework and then look at the answers. And what you will end up with is a crib sheet that will give you good aims for stage aims. Will give you good stage aims for any point in a lesson. It'll also give you a very good procedure for dealing with listening or dealing with production. A very safe procedure that is easy to follow. I should say that the AIM-LP worksheet, or the framework, is mobile. So you may go from activate to production. You may go from language to production. You may go from production to language, depending on the lesson that you want to teach. However, the components within each, although mobile, the aims can stay the same. Okay. So, train the trainer. Decoding the lesson plan. The first place I look is the aims. I look at the main aim. If the main aim is weak, it's usually pretty follows that the rest is very weak as well. Even if the teacher's got very good stage aims and procedure, if they don't know what the aim and where it's all going for, the lesson will waste time, it'll be inefficient, it'll feel a bit floppy. Many teachers confuse activity and aim, especially when they're starting out. They see the aims box on the lesson plan and think, what do I do? So they put in the what rather than the why. So if you can't preface it with, I'm doing this in order to, then it's probably a stage rather than a aim. We found that even very experienced teachers struggle to identify aims. There's quite a lot of reasons. If you work from a course book or other people's materials, quite often the aims are not, they may be in the course book, but we tend not to look at them. We just sort of go through the activities. So there's a lack of practice for stating aims. Get in the habit of thinking, why am I doing this? What's this for? A lot of teachers fill in the aims box with almost anything really. If you're checking a lesson plan, check that the aim actually matches the stage. You'll be surprised how often they don't. The teachers have felt this compulsion to complete the box, fair enough, but it doesn't actually relate to what they're doing. Okay. Developmental tasks. Use the worksheets from this. Also later in the course, we do a section on lesson planning and you'll get a completed lesson plan. Take that, cut it up, get teachers to put it in order, take off the aims, get teachers to write the aims, anything really that gives practice. Another good idea is to cut up lots of activities from different books, put them onto one handout and get teachers to decide the aims for each task. Cut up tasks, that's what I meant. Definitely get people working collaboratively. There's a lot of discussion around aims. Get in the habit. So if a teacher comes up to me and asks me, what do I think of this task? My first question is always, what's the aim? Or, why do you need it? What are you trying to achieve? When you ask that question, it filters immediately. It filters out a lot of things. So get in the habit of asking, what's the aim of this? Why am I doing it? Ask the learners at the end of the lesson. We don't do this enough. what did you learn in this lesson? You can even be quite explicit. What do you think this lesson was about? If they are not clear, then there's a very good chance that the lesson wasn't clear, that the aim wasn't clear. Okay, so aims underpin the entire lesson. They are the starting point. If you're not sure how to sort of formulate a main aim, another trick is to go to the back of the lesson and think, what will they do at the end? What's the purpose of that? If you can define that, that's often the main aim. Aims, good and bad, affect management, pace and engagement. Poor aims often lead to sticky pace and basically students off task. Poor aims, poor plans, poor plans, poor aims. Aims are really important. Okay, this is segment 2, classroom interaction patterns. This is the second segment because this is the second place I look at on lesson plans. So first of all, I look at the aims, the general direction of the lesson, the intention of the lesson. And the classroom interaction patterns tells me a lot, but it starts with who's doing what with whom. But from this information, I can get a clear sense of the pace of the lesson, how much the students will be involved, and essentially how happy they will be with the lesson often. Okay, we'll look at that in a bit more detail. So first of all, what do I mean by interaction symbols? They're probably familiar. These are reasonably international. TS on the plan means teacher standing at the front talking to the students. Now that could be giving input, could be giving instructions, but essentially teacher informing, students supposedly listening. SS indicates pair work, students in pairs, small groups, and working on their own. I'm sure there are others, but those are the primary interaction symbols to put on a lesson plan. Okay, so for you, reflect on some of your recent lessons and note what percentage of the lesson was you at the front and what was part student-to-student interaction. So you may well have been helping students, but was the focus of the plan on them engaged in a task and you supporting them, or were you at the front informing or instructing? So hit the pause button, make a note and come back when you're ready. Okay, so why are these interaction patterns that seem so small, why are they so important? So participation. I can work out from the interaction patterns the level of student participation in the lesson. So when they are active as opposed to passive. It allows me to see for different learning styles. So is there a range of interaction patterns, so allowing for different types of activity? The more that there are students talking with each other, the more the communication level increases. More communication, more people talking to each other, trying to solve problems, the more communication that there is. The classroom management is a lot easier to manage when the interaction patterns are more towards the student focus than the teacher focus. We'll come back to that in a minute. The teacher, it tells me, interaction patterns tell me about the teacher's roles and their preferred style of roles. Okay. So consider the effect of a high level of T or TS on a lesson plan. You pick up a lesson plan. What do you think what will the impact be on the lesson if there's a lot of TS? Okay, so for me, students are passive. They are not engaging actively. Often the lesson is incomprehensible to the students. There's a weird thing that, students are defined as elementary, pre-intermediate, intermediate. The definition of that is about their inability to comprehend extended text. They can't understand a lot of text. And yet I've been in lessons where I've seen teachers talk to elementary students for up to 15 minutes at a time. Yes, it may have been graded. Yes, the meaning may have been exemplified with good demonstrations and good pictures and maybe board work. But you have to remember, low-level students can't cope with that level of input, that length of input. And I can almost guarantee that a lot of it will be incomprehensible. They're passive and they can't understand, so they're going to be distracted and bored, which also add into the pot. The pace is going to be very, very slow. Things are not going to zip along. It's going to be sluggish. And often new teachers lose their nerve at this point because they can feel that they're losing the group, but they don't quite know how to get out of it. Ways that they do it is then to sort of slap down a handout or talk even faster. Not ideal solutions. Particularly with younger learners, you've got big management issues. If you talk too long in front of young learners, they'll start poking each other, playing with their phones, dismantling their desks, thumping each other. Teenagers will start flirting. So will adults, actually. But you've got broadly management issues. Okay, so again, you need, you're not appealing to different types of learner when your teacher talk is high. And it's not good use of time. Interestingly, especially newer teachers, they believe that you can hear them say things like, well, I'll just tell them. It'll be quicker if I tell them. Like, this intermediate student can't understand anybody else speaking English, but why do they think, does the teacher think that they are going to understand what is actually often an ungraded explanation? And usually if the teacher's nervous, it's done at high speed. So although it feels like I'll just tell them, it fulfills the teacher's needs, but I'm not convinced, and there's not much evidence to support it either, that it's effective teaching. Engagement and students working it out for themselves is effective use of time, not being told in a high-speed monologue or even a low-speed monologue. Students won't necessarily pull out what's important. Okay. So from the train the trainer aspect, assessing the lesson plan, get your teachers to calculate the time and percentages on their plans. Encourage them to be realistic. It's really interesting, the gap between how long the teacher believes they're at the front of the lesson and how much longer they actually are at the front of the lesson. Kind of, you wonder what's happening. Yeah, so get them to record themselves. They can do this, privately. No one else needs to know. But encourage them to be realistic. So a lot of teachers, when they're writing lesson plans, will, if they're a bit more experienced, they will adapt the interaction patterns in an effort to please you. But if you check them against the actual activity, you'll find that they're probably not real. So I've had many a plan where the interaction patterns didn't actually match the stage that they were attached to. But yes. So analyse those interaction patterns. If the TS is high, start thinking about how you can reduce, well, first of all, why you need to reduce it with the teacher, but how they can reduce it. So making problem solving, giving the tasks over to students, rather than presenting, give the students material and then work backwards and fill in the gaps to what they don't know. So taking a more student-centred approach, which we talk about a lot, but actually is very unclear for most teachers. Most teachers, and we'll look at this in the next segment, role of the teacher, are very stuck in what they believe their role to be. You're asking the teacher to try and improve the balance of activities, make more. You want students to be talking more than you do, is the first position to move to. Record their lessons, reflect. So if they're not sure how long, because we often go blank in front of a class. People ask me how my lesson went and I think, I don't know. I'm so focused in being in that lesson at that time. It's not always actually very easy to reflect on a lesson. It's supposed to be good practice, but the reality is that it can be quite difficult. So get teachers to record their lessons and reflect on what has happened in reality. Okay, a task for you. Think about 3 different lesson types: receptive skills, reading and listening; productive skills, speaking, writing; language input, where you're teaching new language, vocabulary, grammar or function. We're going to imagine it's a 50-minute lesson. It's highly unlikely that you would do receptive skills for 50 minutes, but who knows? But this is just a sort of theoretical task. So imagine, what percentage do you think in a 50-minute or 100-minute, whatever, reading receptive skills lesson should be TS? Yeah. So write down your estimated top percentage of TS. What would you allow for each of the 3 lesson types? Is it going to be 30, 40, 50, 60, 70%? Okay. So have a think. Would they be the same or would they be different? Which one would be more? Which would be less? Okay, hit the pause button and come back when you're ready. Okay. So I should add that we've polled many teacher trainers over the years, and this is the consensus of answers. So receptive skills, broadly, we wouldn't want to see the teacher at the front for more than 20% of the lesson time. Ideally, 15. Language, we would give it more. It would be better if it's lower. But however, I think that this is one of the times when teachers do need to be up at the front more. Productive skills, 10-15%. By the time you get to productive skills, your job is to set up the task, get them preparing, rehearsing, and in which time you're working with small groups. The need to be at the front is minimal except for class setup and perhaps managing feedback at the end. So many new teachers are very surprised at how low those figures are, particularly for language input. And again, that largely comes back to what they believe the role of the teacher to be within the lesson. So imagine a teacher comes to you with a lesson plan showing 70% TS interaction. How will you word your feedback to them to improve their skills? What are you going to do to help them? Okay, hit the pause button. Make your notes and come back when you're ready. Okay, so you will be able to download an information sheet which gives you our lesson note, our feedback notes for if you see this in a lesson, and they will help you to work your way through giving the teacher feedback. It's a complex problem. There's no simple solution. There's lots of things happening when you've got high interaction patterns. It's inexperience on the teacher's part, their belief in the role of the teacher, that although we talk about student-centred work, it's very hard to know what it actually means. And they have few models of good practice. So to support teachers, the first idea is to, acknowledge that it needs change and then start working out incrementally how you can increase the level of student-to-student work. Okay, hope that works for you. In this section, I want to look at the role of the teacher, which is often quite underestimated, but actually very, very powerful in how the teacher's perception of their role affects the lesson itself. So before we start, can you download and complete the worksheet teacher questionnaire? So this will give you some ideas about how your role is in the classroom. You may or may not agree with it. That's fine. It's really just to get you thinking about your own role in the classroom. Come back when you're ready. Okay, so why is the teacher's role critical? The role of the teacher is to create the conditions for invention rather than provide ready-made knowledge. I really like this quote. However, I find that many teachers like it in theory, but in practice it doesn't really happen. So on first initial training courses, we always do a little bit of an experiment. So we ask all the teachers to stand up, or the newbie teachers, pre-service teachers, and ask them to sit down when the sentence or the statement doesn't resonate with them. So the first thing we say is the teacher is standing at the front of the class. Everyone stays up. The teacher is speaking. Everybody stays up. The students are all listening. Everybody stays up. The teacher is confident and has good content. Everybody stays up. And when we unpick that, we understand that the role of the teacher, and you have to remember this is why they're attracted, or many of them are attracted to the role, is that they feel that they are standing at the front and that they are being listened to. When in reality that rarely happens, and in a student-centred class that's driven by being student-centred, that happens less and less. And the more experienced a teacher is, we would argue that it again decreases substantially. The amount of time the teacher is at the front explaining drops. So the role of the teacher and the perception of it is critical. It's also, this is dictated by culture and custom as well, and location. So different teacher role expectations are often set. So for example, in some countries you will be given a podium which is put on a raised space, a lectern, not a podium, but you are on a podium, and you are told that you should not move away you should stay within arm's reach at all times of that lectern. Very, very difficult. There are also situations where teachers are online with many, many dozens of students, and in a sense that it's very hard to create a lesson that isn't student-centred, that isn't teacher-centred. So different contexts require different roles of teachers, and teachers have to adapt. However, as an ideal or a direction to aim for or head for, student-centred work is where most learning takes place, and most thinking about methodology acknowledges that this is the best way for students to learn. And when I say student-centred, what I mean is that they are doing the work, they're working out the problems, and the teacher becomes a resource. So in the sense the students are proactive and the teacher reacts to their need, as opposed to the teacher being proactive and the students reacting to the tasks that the teacher sets. So although the teacher is always powerful in the classroom, in a student-centred classroom, the students are likely to have more power than in teacher-led, and the engagement is different. The engagement is more of equals The role of the teacher is to supply and discover the student's need, and the student's role is to display the need and get the help that they want. So the contract between teacher and student changes quite dramatically in a student-centred classroom, which is not always what everybody wants. And also it creates different types of classrooms. So classrooms that are student-centred are not working in lockstep, everybody together at the same time. They can feel kind of messy and a bit scrappy because people are working at different things at different times. The teacher is much more low-key and is more in a supportive role. It depends again on context. However, I think I would say to you as a teacher, think about the roles that you're most comfortable in, and also to what extent can you try out other roles? How many roles do you play in your class? Or have you fallen into a pattern of always the same? Experiment, try. It's worth it. Okay, so there are obviously many different roles. We have facilitator, that person that helps organise things, gets everybody, they provide what's required. The expert, standing at the front, I'm the one who knows about this piece of grammar, I'm going to tell you what it means. Controller, it's kind of the classroom management, be quiet, give me the answer, into groups, you've got 5 minutes. Monitor, walking around, listening, seeing how's everybody doing, assessing where the group's up to, assessing where the difficulties are. I'll give you the handouts that you need, or look at this place for the information that you need. This is a good link. Assessor. So quite often we're in the role of assessor. Yes, you've passed the test, or no, you haven't. I think that this is what you need. Well done on that. You did a good job. Planner, organise. Yeah, I think this happens often before the lesson. To some extent, it could be, if you're working really actively with students, you may want to plan forward lessons with them, but quite logistically complex. Diagnostician, the one who says, yes, these students are struggling with the past perfect. They can't quite get the meaning of 2 connected events in the past. So that's where I'm going to do some more work next lesson. Participant. Into pairs, I'll be your partner. Well done. That was good. Yes, go again. That really worked. Okay. So lots of roles. Can you download Teacher Roles worksheet and consider the disadvantages of each role? Roles are not all positive. So have a look and consider some of the disadvantages of each role. Come back when you're ready. Okay. So one way of assessing your own lesson and the role of the teacher is absolutely by the questions that the teacher asks. So it's worth recording one of your lessons to see what sort of questions you're asking. So, closed questions. Is this in the past tense? Is it in the future? So we know the answer. The student answers usually one word. An awful lot of these get asked in a normal language classroom. Referential questions. These are the questions we need to ask a lot more of. These are the questions where we don't know the answer. As a teacher, we don't know the answer. So what did you do for dinner last night? How was the party? Did the meeting go well? We need to ask a lot more. So the main thing is that we don't know the answer. Convergent, divergent questions. So we're not sure of the answer, but there is one answer for the convergent. So why do we use the present perfect here? So it's not yes, no, it's slightly open, but so the convergent is why do we use the present perfect? Where divergent is that there could be multiple answers. For example, what are the different ways that we can apologise in English? So the question has a framework. There's a limited or correct, incorrect responses. However, there are many possible responses. Now we're on to Bloom's taxonomy, which we do have a section on in this course, but high order and low order thinking. High order questions are the ones where the brain is engaged. High order questions could be, can you use this piece of vocabulary in a sentence? What's the difference between these two phrasal verbs in terms of meaning? Which tone would be better for this email? Lower order questions are much simpler, like what's the plural of child? Translate library into your language. So the lower order questions don't require so much mental engagement. Socratic questions. Why do you think that's the correct preposition? How do you know that this is formal register? So we're not sure. We're challenging the student to really think at a deeper level about the language. And display questions. We do way too many display questions with our students. So the teacher knows the answer, and we're really just checking that the student knows. So what's the past tense of go? Give me an example of a phrasal verb. The student gets it either right or wrong. It tends to be more a display of the teacher's knowledge, to be honest, rather than the student's. So record some of your lessons and work out what questions. Are you asking higher order questions? Are you asking referential or Socratic questions? Or do you tend to be at the lower end of the scale with your questions to students? Are they more closed, lower order display questions? It takes confidence to start asking Socratic higher order questions when you can't necessarily guess how the students will respond, which is why it's more difficult to do. So teachers tend to prefer referential display closed questions. If you're not asking enough of them, start thinking about how you can incorporate more into your lesson. Okay, so testing the teacher role. How to sort of get teachers to look at the roles that they're taking. So look at the assumptions that teachers make. Try different things. Try some different level activities. Try passing over the power more to the students. I was in a Delta class once where the teacher was required to leave the lesson for 50% of the time. And she found it almost impossible. She sat outside the door almost crying. She couldn't face being out of the role at the front. So it's quite a nice task. So try and shake it up a bit. What are your assumptions? Are you needed in the classroom? Can you step back? Can you try different level material? Experiment, in other words. Teacher language. This is quite important. So we've looked at questions. What questions are the teachers asking? And also assess, you need to record your lessons for this, of course, but assess how many times is there authentic communication in the classroom? Authentic in the sense that there is genuine human being to human being communication without some kind of power balance of I'm the teacher and you're the student. You're looking for authenticity of language as much as possible. Yes, look at the interaction patterns. That's another part of this course. Learner questions. Are the learners asking any questions? If they are, great. That's the first breakthrough. Also look at the quality. Are the learners asking questions like, can I say this? Does this sound right? Would you put that word into this sentence? So are the students using the teacher as a resource in which they can explore language, or is it did I get number 5 right? So it's very valuable. Obviously, you want the more where the teacher's reacting to the students, providing they set up the need and the teacher provides the resource for them, as opposed to, okay, everybody, let's do this control practice and I will tell you the answers and you will tell me how many you've got wrong. Horrible. Okay. Also, assess how many or how much individual feedback is being given. Does everybody in the class get a moment of, praise, or, that, oh, well done, that was a well-used piece of language, or try using this preposition next time? Or is everything in lockstep and, praises, okay, well done everybody who got 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, not bad. Those of you under 9, come on, do the homework. How many times is the teacher out of the sort of lockstep role and giving individual feedback? So all of those questions help test the role of the teacher. Oh, I forgot this one. Leave the room. I was on a Delta course where a teacher was required to leave the room for 50%. And it was a good requirement because she could not get out of being at the front of the room. She just couldn't let go of the role of the teacher. The whole notion of being student-centred was alien and really uncomfortable for her. So she was made to set up activities in such a way that she wasn't required to be present and at the front. And she would be outside the classroom absolutely sweating and in tears because she wasn't needed. There's a lot of psychology in teaching. We need to think what we want from our students. This is not a psychology course, but at an ego level, are we there to serve? What do we actually looking for from our students in turn? We invest so much. We give our time, we put ourselves on the line. It's natural that we would want things from it. And we need to ask ourselves, what is that we're looking for? And if it's for our own audience or ego, we need to get rid of that one. In the course so far, we've looked at how to create detailed lesson plans. We've looked at the role of excellent aims, interaction patterns, the role of the teacher. Now I want to bring something completely different to this, where we're going to look at the level of mental engagement on the part of the student. And we're going to base that on Bloom's taxonomy. So, Benjamin Bloom, very, very influential in the field of education. He was an American psychologist, and he was very interested in assessing the type of activities we do and how they engage with the students at a mental level. And he gave us a framework which allows us to assess what we're doing in the classroom. So, the framework looks like a pyramid. There are 6 levels. The lower, broader ones at the bottom of the pyramid we consider to be low order thinking, which is sometimes referred to as LOTS, where the top 3 are the HOTS, the analysing, evaluating and creating, are the high order thinking. So all of them are absolutely fine. The trick in lesson planning, of course, is to not get stuck in one place, because it could be argued that a lot of language lesson material is in the low order thinking. So we need to, in this day and age, to work out how to get our students to do higher order thinking tasks. Okay, so we'll start with, for you, and it is quite a low order thinking task, is to complete the worksheet so you match the title with the description so that you feel more comfortable about using the taxonomy. Okay, why it's useful for teachers? It's a clear framework for objectives. The language used in it is clear. Analyse, evaluate, remember. When we've got quite measurable language like that, we can create clear objectives. It encourages higher order thinking because we're aware of that these things are needed of the lessons. So we move out of the lower order type tasks. It helps differentiate instruction. It also allows us to work with different levels, different capacities at the same time. We can organise an activity in a way that it will be a lower order for one group where we might set a higher objective for another group, but using the same material. So, for example, a role play, we could have a semi-scripted role play for one group, while the other group are merely given the context and told to create from scratch. That would be the same material, more or less, with different levels of orders of thinking. It's much easier to support your assessment if your language is around assess, remember, create. Then we can equally write clear objectives but assess our activities as well and our performance in the classroom. And it encourages balanced lesson plans. We don't want all low order thinking or all high order thinking. A good balance is actually what's required. It aligns with real world skills. In this day of increased AI, our students need skills for critical thinking, creativity. We really don't need an awful lot of memory skills these days. This is a note to self, but not everybody loves Bloom's taxonomy. It needs to be remembered that it's not a linear process, and that also at times there's not always just one thing happening in a task. There can be many different elements to a task. So download and complete the levels test your Bloom's taxonomy. This is a slightly higher order thinking task, which should be easier now. Come back when you're ready. Okay, another benefit of Bloom's taxonomy is it supports SMART aims. Where the language is specific of the taxonomy, you can create specific objectives. Specific objectives are much more measurable than vague ones. So let me think. Analyse. I want you to analyse the present perfect and the uses of it within this text. There are 4 elements to it. You can measure that. It allows you to scaffold cognitive demand, meaning that you can move up and you can you can start with lower order thinking, remember the vocabulary, analyse how we use it, notice the past simple tenses, apply it in this situation, and now take the vocabulary out and create something completely new that's pertinent to you as a person. So in that way, we've kind of gone from lots to hots. Okay. Train the trainer, working with the taxonomy. Just remember, bear in mind that it is multi-level and non-linear. We can duck and dive around. So it can be used to describe different parts of a lesson, and it does not have to be linear. Get your teachers to identify the levels just as you have, use the same materials, so they become fluent with the identifying what they're doing in terms of the hots and lots. Give teachers a range of tasks and ask them to decide what level of the taxonomy they are, and perhaps also how they could increase the level using the same material, so they could change the task for the teachers. Analyse your lesson plans. Look at, take each stage. What would you say the activity, where on the taxonomy would you put each task? If you haven't got a good range there, how can you adapt the lesson plan so that there is a range of hots and lots on your plan? So, at the end of the day, aim for the brain. Higher order thinking is stimulating for students, it's enjoyable, and it works really well. There's lots of low order thinking in course books. Raise the bar. Incorporate more hots into your lesson so you become a hot teacher. Enjoy. In this section, I want to have a look at AI and how you can use it for lesson planning and also assessing your lesson plan. What I would say is I'm going to use ChatGPT, but there are other varieties available. It all depends what you have access to and what you prefer. My ChatGPT page. So create, you can go with my spelling mistakes as well. Create a 50-minute grammar lesson for B1 on comparatives in English. I'm not sure I even need to put that, but I'll put it anyway. Let's see what comes up. Okay, so that was quite a simple, basic instruction. We've got the aim, form and use comparatives to compare two things. We've got the warm-up, a presentation. Okay. I'm going to create this as a handout so you can download it for more detailed read. But basically it looks like this lesson goes from a lead-in. We've got the classic presentation. We've got guided controlled practice and some kind of production feedback. Okay, so I will say make this lesson more student-centred. So same thing again, but student-centred lesson, and we're finding our tasks. Students work in pairs, so they're problem solving. Okay. So show the percentage of student-centred work in each stage, and as an overall percentage of the lesson. As an overall. We don't need an F there. Okay, let's see what happens. So, very interesting. Now we're beginning to look at this. So I told you about we could assess lessons, student-centred range 80%. Student-centred, what have we got here? This is by stage, time. Interesting. Estimated student-centre time. And now we have the same thing in minutes. So this is as a percentage. Note the student-centred. And now we have totals. So 18%, is that right? 18% of that is teacher-led. It's a very good percentage. Student doing most of the work 82% of the time. Okay, show the plan with Bloom's taxonomy for each stage. Bloom's levels, so it tells us what part of the taxonomy we're using: remembering, understanding, applying and understanding. Okay, so what percentage of the lesson is Bloom's HOTS? Let's see if we can cope with that. Higher order thinking. So we'll go by the stage. So we're analysing the lesson. 40% HOTS. Interesting. So this is a very hot lesson. It's divided it into times, and it's got 46% of the lesson is hot. Excellent. Not sure that the lesson's workable. I haven't looked at it for that, but it just shows you what can be done. Okay, consider the role of the teacher at each stage. Let's see what that happens now. Facilitator, guide, checking and confirming, monitor, supporter, observer, encourager, facilitator and feedback. A good range of roles there. So it's clear it's a student-centred lesson because there's very little at the front teaching. The roles are coaching, encouraging, guiding, facilitating, monitoring. Very nice. So it can create all types of lessons. For example, create a 500 word text. Create a text, an IELTS level reading text on the topic of teaching English. Right. So let's go 500 words. We'll contain it a little bit. All right, so we'll create a text. Okay. Okay, it's actually offering me, I can also create a set of IELTS style comprehension questions. So create IELTS style, oh, no, that's not good. Ready when you are, we've lost it. Let me go back. Okay, create IELTS style comprehension questions. Okay, so we've got our questions. So we're going to have a reading lesson and we've got our basic questions. Yeah? Use the text as the basis of a 50-minute lesson and create plan. All right, let's see what it does. Here's a 50-minute lesson plan based on IELTS style comprehension questions. and text about comparatives in English. So it's decided to add in comparatives itself. So it's very AI, it's combined what it knows. Okay. So it didn't take my reading text, it took the text about comparatives. Interesting. So that teaches me how to be quite specific in my questions to the ChatGPT. You've got to be the questions count, but it's still created a reading lesson, and it's also given me, and it's a good reading lesson. It's got a lead in, pre-reading, gist, detailed, and follow-up. And the ChatGPT offers, answer keys, draft the sample text itself. It offers you options as to what to do. Okay, we'll do one more. Create a speaking task on topic, speaking lesson on topic of hobbies. No, let's have something a bit more interesting. On topic of AI for level A2 English. Okay, let's see what happens. Elementary, pre-intermediate, the lesson plan speaking about. By the end of the lesson, students will. Right, lesson stages. Okay, so I would say include main and stage aims with the above lesson. Main aim, very good, to give students speaking practice about using simple vocabulary. Okay, so it hasn't specified the vocabulary, that's right though. Subsidiary aims or secondary aims. Okay, so they've picked up on the language of preferences. Fine. Okay. So this is a vocabulary to listening and speaking lesson. So I hope that gave you just a taste of what you can do with AI. As you get quicker and easier with the prompts, it becomes more accurate. But I would just say check and check again. It's not always accurate. You definitely cannot rely on it. But it's great for ideas, for text generation. And I would say have fun with it. Enjoy, experiment. It's good fun asking it to write different types of genre, all sorts of things you can do with AI. The only limit perhaps is your imagination. So you're now at the end of your Advanced TESOL Skills Masterclass course. We produce a range of courses for experienced teachers. So these courses are designed for teachers with at least 2 years teaching experience. They're designed to have immediate impact. You take the course, you use what you get from the course into your classroom the next day. So there's less on theory and much more on practice. Fantastic preparation for advanced exams like the Cambridge Delta and for moving into more teacher support roles. So basically looking to move further up the TESOL ladder, this is a brilliant grounding for you. Our idea is that you get better retention, you get better student feedback, so you get more finances are easier and you get more time to yourself. Teachers work too hard. They need an easier life is our belief system. So these courses are designed to offer you that. Okay, our courses include Masterclass in Lesson Planning for High Impact Teaching. So these are all the ways. This is a two-part course. In one, it's how to read lesson plans so that you know where the faults are going to be, where it's going to work, where it won't work. And then also how to create lesson planning in order to have student-centered dynamic classes. Error correction. The reason for this is you get immediately better feedback from your students because your knowledge and your skills increase with this course. Masterclass and high impact reading. Reading can be a bit of a bug in classes, it can be boring. This shows you how you can make it dynamic, you can get language from it, students will want to do it, and also show you how to produce materials very easily. ChatGPT to transform TESOL teaching. This is designed more for teachers who are not too familiar with AI. They want to know what their students are up to and how they can use it to transform their classrooms. It's certainly very, very useful in the planning stages. Classroom management. How do the great teachers make a great class zing? What are they doing? What are the techniques that really keep students on task, engaged, and giving you very good feedback? So keep your eyes open. We are always developing more courses. Let us know if you've enjoyed this or not, and what other courses you'd like us to design for you. Enjoy.